lifeboat down here. You know, it's part of the town. You are very much part of it. It's got a terrific, tremendously heroic history, this lifeboat. And I wanted to get this feeling into a good old rousing march. I know most of the crew, and the coxswain is a brass band enthusiast, and he wanted a real rouser. And you see, they had this new boat last year, so it was written to celebrate that, really.
Why did you come down to live in Padstow?
Well, I mean, I love the place. And I've been coming here for holidays for 15 years, but having lived here, the local people are extraordinarily friendly. It's a community.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that. I mean, if you down here, if you give somebody a smile, you get one back.
Oh, absolutely.
Jolly unusual.
You certainly, most unusual.
And have you written any other Cornish music?
Yes, the Cornish dances, which aren't, of course, folk songs, because you can get more of a national characteristic into one tune than ever appears in one folk song.
So they're sort of Cornish type?
They're Cornish type, yes. In particular, the first one, with the repeated notes. Now, this is a Cornish characteristic, the repeated notes. You know, almost on one note, the first one is.
And the second one?
The second one tries to get the atmosphere of these deserted engine houses and of the copper and tin mines. So there's a very strange atmosphere, hundreds of years of history there. Very marvellous atmosphere.
got a list here of all the films you've done. Enormous list. Bridge on the River Kwai, Deep Blue Sea, Heroes of Telemark, Inn of the Sixth Happiness, 1984, 9 Hours to Rama, Roots of Heaven, Sound Barrier, Trapeze. About 80 films.
Good Lord. Amazing that anywhere any good at all. I mean, the music. Perhaps they win.
How many years to write 80 film scores?
20 years. That was.
Gosh,
yes.
It's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
Don't you find it absolutely exhausting writing for films, though? I mean, they always want the scores ready yesterday, don't they?
If you didn't do it in a hurry, you'd never start. If you had time to think about it and worry about the music and the smartness of it, you'd probably lose the dramatic effect. I mean, film music has got to instantaneously state its case, you know, state what it's saying to the audience. And it's best to do this sort of thing on first impact and in a hurry.
Instant music.
Yes, instant music.
But what would be the time sequence on writing music for something like, say, the Bridge on the River Kwai?
Well, that was very short indeed. I had exactly 10 days.
And how much music in the picture?
There was just at least 3/4 of an hour.
But that's fantastic.
Yes, it was hard work. The Bridge on the River Kwai, I finished work at midnight and used to start work at 4 o'clock in the morning. I never have anybody to help on these things. I don't believe in ghosting, you know. I wouldn't be responsible standing up in front of the customers, as it were, if I hadn't written it myself.
But how do you make that marvellous sort of crystallized fruit noise in Whistle Down the Wind?
It's a celeste, a harmonium, 3 piccolos, a rhythm section, and a harp. That's what it is. And whistling, Richard Attenborough whistling. He's the anonymous whistler. He's extremely good.
Malcolm, when I first met you, it must have been about 1941. You were first trumpet in the LPO, and I always thought much the best trumpet player of your generation.
That's very nice. I did sometimes, too.
But I always do remember this marvellous way when you had an important solo. You would do a sort of Walt Disney effect. You started playing and then went a little bit pink, then rather red, then puce, purple, violet, until one really thought you were going to burst. And then as soon as you'd finished, you put the trumpet down and looked at it as if it had just done something extremely obscene.
Yes, well, it may have done. It had done something extremely clever, so quite often.
Was that your first job in the OPO?
No, I mean, first symphonic job, but I mean, I'd played before the war in holidays, but from the college, on the pier at Llandudno, and played in variety theatres, all that sort of thing. It was the first symphonic job I had.
Do you think orchestras play better nowadays than they did?
No, I think that's absolute nonsense. I heard there was a programme about the Sabbath, and they put on a record that we'd made of Berlioz's Roman Carnival, which is really, I mean, there isn't playing like that now. It's absolute nonsense. There's a very good, sophisticated, smooth mezzo forte. Everything's roughly in its right place. Nothing's too loud and nothing's too soft. I think if we heard a real fortissimo now, there'd be protests.
Don't know about that. But could you tell us something about Tam? I mean, Tam O'Shanter was your first big success as a composer, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know if it's ever been a big success. I'm very lucky, as having never been in fashion, I can never say that I'm out of fashion. I don't think I've ever had a big success. It just rolls along.
Malcolm, I wonder if you could tell us something about Tam from the bagpipes onwards.
Tam is very late. He's been at market much longer than he should have done. And he's riding home on a stormy night, turns a corner at the old church, Kirk of Alloway, and he sees a devil playing bagpipes, old Nick, playing bagpipes there, and folks dancing. And then it says in the poem that coffins open and dead bodies come out and dance, hence the funeral march with the bell tolling of the old Kirk of Alloway. And then he gets so excited at this scene of revelry. There's a girl in a very short skirt, very fashionable, you see, this poem, which they call in the Scottish a cutty sark.
And that's what that means.
That's what it means. Yes, it's not a ship. It's a short skirt. And he shouts out, "Well done, Cutty Sark." And all these people see him and run after him, pursue him. And he runs, and he knows the only way to get away from them is to go over a running stream, because as we all know, evil spirits can't pass over running streams, you know. And so he gets to a running stream. They just got hold of him. They're gaining on him. They get the poor old mare's tail, and it jumps across the stream, and they're left holding the mare's tail. And he gets away. You hear him go away in the music, and it ends with Burns' tongue-in-the-cheek moral, which is the little chorale bit on the flutes and clarinets at the end, where he says, if you're thinking of drink and women, remember poor old Tam O'Shanter's mare.
Perhaps we should drink to that.
Why not?
Julian, have you often worked with Malcolm Arnold?
Well, yes, I have. I've known him many years. In fact, I think I met Malcolm first about 20 years ago when he wrote a lovely little serenade for guitar and strings. And ever since that time, we've met at odd places, you know. I must say that, of course, our greatest time together was when he was writing the concerto. We saw a lot of each other at that time.
Was it a commission, or how did it come about?
Well, it was a commission, but he wouldn't take the money. But I asked him for a long time if he would write a concerto, and he said, well, perhaps one day, and so forth. And I got really rather impatient towards the end, so I said, look, you've written this serenade, why don't you use this as a movement for a start, and tag on another movement? And he didn't like the idea of doing that, and so I wrote, I think, about the 10th time. And I said, look, Malcolm, here's so many pounds. I would like a concerto. And he wrote back the next day and said, I'd love to do the concerto. When do you want it by? And that was it.
And now, did you make any sort of special preparation? I mean, he knew the guitar, knew how to write for the guitar. I mean, or did you say, look, I want plenty of blues in it, or I want this, or I want that?
Well, he's very instinctive about instruments. He really does know his job.
He prides himself in his professionalism.
That's right.
Quite rightly.
And he writes magnificently for the guitar. And what is extraordinary is that the sound that he gets from the instrument, the resonances, are quite uniquely his own, I feel.
Does this piece have any special technical difficulties or things? Any particular headaches?
Well, it's beautifully written for the guitar, of course. Well, like all Malcolm's music, I mean, it's whatever he writes for. However, in the development section, there's a passage which is rather terrifying. And I must say that when I saw it first, I didn't think it was going to work. But, well, I just had to work at it.
Is that the jugga-jugga-junk-junk?
That's right, yeah.
I seem to remember you saying that was a bit of the old Rascoaldo.
Yeah, Rascoaldo, yes.
Oh, I don't know what that meant, though. It sounds like bouillabaisse to me.
You're getting mixed up with Gesualdo, I think, aren't you?
Well, what does it mean?
No, it's just... Rascoaldo is a Spanish word for the technique of playing chords like that.
I see.
It's just with the nails. And there's a passage where he uses that technique.
Can't you play it?
Well... See, that's quite difficult, you know, with the repeated chord and so forth. But, you know, like all good composers, they make their performers work. They have to improve. And I must say that I've never had anything like that to play before. But it did give me a new insight into certain problems of guitar technique.
Do you think Malcolm's character, we've both known him a long time, do you think Malcolm's character really comes out in his music?
Oh, I do. But my feeling is that his sort of, as it were, public image is one of being a sort of rumbustious, lusty sort of character. And in fact, I don't say it's false, this image, but on the other hand, there are other sides to Malcolm which are very sensitive and very touching. And I feel that in the guitar concerto, particularly, this side of his character comes out.
There's a lonely side as well as an extremely extrovert.
Yes. I think they're very well related. I think that his character is very remarkable. I think on the English scene today, there's nobody quite like Malcolm. He's such a joy to be with, and he has such a magnificent generosity of heart, spirit, you know. And it's like him. I mean, he's an enormous chap.
Your music sounds as if you're very fluent and almost facile sometimes. Do you write easily?
Not really, no. No, not easily. But once I get started, I write easily. It's difficult to start. But I don't think of the important thing I find about music is not the notes and juggling with notes. I look on it as a means of human expression. And the actual notes that don't matter so much, if you see what I mean. It's a extra means of communication. That's why criticism or an attitude towards music, which looks after the mere technique of it and nothing else, is meaningless to me. I expect technique in music to be impeccable. I don't talk about it. I expect it to be as near perfect as a person can do, but they've got to be saying something, communicating. This is more important than the music itself, if you see what I mean.
But then very little of your music has a direct message, an extra musical message.
No, it has, I hope, an emotional plan. I hope it's interests, or it's meant to interest and excite people, you know.
But a lot of people find your music, I think, too extrovert. I mean, admittedly, they may be highbrows and musical snobs. For example, some of your symphonies haven't gone down terribly well with the press.
Yes.
They think of you as a sort of musical buffoon sometimes.
Yes,
It seems
well, you see, people should always recognize that however intellectual any art form is, and particularly music, the very basis of it is exhibitionist. The very basis of music or any artistic endeavor is exhibitionism. And once you realize this, then perhaps people won't worry whether people are introverted or extrovert, because you know that this is a bit of high-class exhibitionism.
Have you ever written a piece that you might think is directly political?
Well, yes. I mean, deliberately so. Peterloo, over to Peterloo. It's the TUC commissioned for their 100th anniversary this year. Yes, I've tried to draw a parallel with the sort of riots that I see happening today with the riots of Peterloo, where a huge crowd of people had come to hear an address on political reform by Henry Hunt. And the police moved in to arrest the speaker, and it was a perfectly peaceful crowd of women and children. And there was an absolute chaos, panic. And then they sent in the cavalry. And as I said, 400 people injured, lots of people killed. And this was known. It was just after the time of the Battle of Waterloo. And this was known, and it has been known ever since that day, 150 odd years ago. It's been known as Peterloo, as derisively, you know, the great victory.
Is this a piece with a message, or is it a piece of program music?
It's a piece of program music with my own message tacked on the end, because I have said in a note on the score that although it ends with the lament for the wounded and the dying, I've said that if that at some time the suffering and martyrdom of people who have worked towards unity amongst mankind will eventually be justified. And this is a message which is one of hope. I think it's inevitable. If you don't believe this, it makes surely any form of human activity useless and nonsensical.
Why you haven't written a grand opera?
I've written 2 one-act operas, but my chief interest in theatre music has been ballet, and I think I've written 5 ballets. I've always liked ballet, gone to ballet, and I haven't thought about writing a full-length opera. I think probably the musical is the thing, really. I hadn't thought about writing a musical.
Well, that's something you should do, certainly.
Well, if you get the right book, you know.
But you like writing music for people, don't you?
Oh, very much so, yes. Amateurs and children. I think this is a musical life, you know. It's not the sort of musical life in London where there's a lot of highly specialised professionals giving the thousandth performance of the same work, you know, Bruckner Symphony every night, this sort of thing. I think music is what people do themselves, and I think the job of a professional musician is to try to encourage them to do the music themselves.
Good, very good. Thank you. Better attack. Let's have a better attack. Go on. That's right.
Is it perhaps the simplicity that appeals to you about this local Cornish composer that you've resurrected?
Well, Thomas Merritt. Yeah, well, he's, of course, his carols have always been sung down here. I mean, they sing Thomas Merritt carols, and they're more widely sung than Silent Night, for instance, down here, you know. I haven't really resurrected them. I found a lot of anthems and things. But I do like this simplicity. I like this revivalist fervour.
Make more of the crescendo after the piano. Come on, straight on. Third verse.
Was Thomas Merritt a trained musician, or was he a sort of local Charles Ives?
Well, no, he certainly wasn't a Charles Ives. I mean, he was a very poor man, like most people of the time in Cornwall. His family had been pretty well bled dry by the mine owners that came down here. But he was born in 1863. His father was a miner, and his father died when he was 11, and he had to go down the mines to earn a living for the family. And when he was about 18, he was very ill, and he had to get work above ground, and he studied. Well, he must have studied music before, but he had 6 months actual tuition, and he became an organist and teacher, and was able to earn a living writing music.
Did he need a lot of work to get this Merritt music in order?
Yes, it did. I mean, first of all, we had to find it. And as it's 60 years, we wanted to do a 60th commemoration of his death. took a lot of finding, and also, you see, it's all for organ. And it took me 4 complete months, the work on this, for this concert.
That's a lot of time out of a composer's
Well
life.
worth it. The best 4 months, the most rewarding 4 months I've ever spent in music.
Johnny, there's none like Cocktail Joe. Is there any lady here would like to be my dear? Just let her step up here before I go. For a husband to her mind is what she wants to find. Joe the dandy-o, the dandy-o, the dandy-o, or there he goes, that's Cocktail Joe. Light feels under, jelly flip and run, smash, flip, flop, monk, chop, and up she go. Like it, that's like cake, like Cora. Johnny, there's none like Cocktail Joe.
Malcolm, you seem to be doing a lot more conducting these days.
Yes. I've always liked...
Burning.
Yes.
Presumably you like conducting, you enjoy it. It looks as if you do.
It just stays the same way.
But
One
I mean,
gets one date from this place,
see.
you know, it just doesn't add up. I haven't got the sort of magnetic thing that collects the iron filings, or the shekels, whatever it is.
Would you like in Cornwall to make some kind of a local festival like Britain has in Suffolk?
No, Britain is, the Aldborough Festival is unique. I mean, he's created his society and his festival, and it's unique. It's an international thing. But down here, what I would like to see would be an arts centre.
But there's an awful lot of local music making here,
Oh,
isn't there?
terrific. The singing and the brass bands and this, which I enjoy. And by entering into that, one is so much part of a community.
It seems to have...
essential.
Yes, it seems to have given you a new lease of life, doesn't
Yes,
it?
well, I've never been part of a community. I don't think ever in my life until I came down here, you see.
But don't you think it's very important for composers? They should have a sort of foot in the soil somewhere.
Yes, and it should be part of a community, and not as in London, for instance, part of a clique, which is not a community. There are cliques that ignore the existence of the other clique. This is much too narrow. I wouldn't want to be part of that.
People writing for each other and...
Oh, dreadful, yes. Terrible.
But as a composer, you're still really very much, although you try and shock us from time to time with loud noises in the orchestra, you...
That's a good one.
You're really a trad writer, aren't you? I mean, all these sonata form movements and 6 symphonies.
Yes, yes, in the sense of using a symphony orchestra to express ideas. To me, it's the most exciting sound, a symphony orchestra. And a symphony, it's the highest form of music, a symphony. To me, it is. I know nothing higher or more enjoyable.
And you write a very good rumbustious finale.
Yeah, well, that's very nice of you, Di.